We are now 3 days into the second year of Donald Trump's second term. And yesterday, the former special counsel Jack Smith reminded us of the choice that America and Americans faced in 2024.
Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican. No one should be above the law in this country.
Seems like a simple thing you learn in school, right? No one should be above the law in this country. And I don't mean law school. I mean, we all learn this. And so we were also reminded that the Supreme Court's conservative majority gave a green light to Donald Trump's lawlessness that has been on display just about every single day since he returned to office. Trump's very likely unconstitutional tariffs have made life less affordable for Americans. They've increased the strain, the financial strain on small businesses. Trump's transactional foreign policy, his threats to Greenland specifically, and our NATO allies more generally, are alienating our allies and delighting our adversaries like Vladimir Putin. There's the $1,408,500,000 that Trump has made since returning to office, much of it due to his family's crypto ventures. And in blue states and cities that didn't vote for Trump, residents are facing his cruel and brutal immigration crackdowns and the deployment of troops as a scare tactic. But amid all the chaos, amid all of this chaos that causes us great anxiety and some of us depression, there is, in fact, more than a little hope. It is 2026 now. We are 10 months away from the midterm elections, and the polls are clearly showing that Americans reject Trumpism. 56% of registered voters disapprove of the way Donald Trump is handling his job as president. Only 32% say they're better off with Donald Trump as president than they were a year ago when Joe Biden was the president, compared to 49% who say they are worse off. 58% disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling his key issue, immigration, the economy, relationships with other countries. 64% disapprove of how Donald Trump is handling the cost of living. Against the backdrop of these poor poll numbers, Donald Trump is set to give a speech on the economy in Iowa next Tuesday. That'll be interesting. Donald Trump plans to campaign like his name is on the ballot for this year's midterms. This week, Democrats Abigail Spanberger of Virginia and Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey were sworn in after winning their governor's races in the first real test of the second Trump administration. The shock and awe of Donald Trump's first year back in office was meant to do what wannabe dictators always want to do: make people feel like everyone's with the dictator. Make it seem like resistance to that dictator is futile. But over this year, we have seen literally thousands of protests, not thousands of protests, protesters, thousands of protests by many millions of Americans, including the 7 million people on just one day who attended the 2,700 No Kings events across the country last October. 7 million people showed up then. Things are way worse today than they were in October. American citizens are proving that resistance is anything but futile, and ordinary citizens are doing it. In Minneapolis today, thousands of people braved the below-zero temperatures to protest Donald Trump's immigration policies that are terrorizing their communities. The reports of why people who are busy with jobs and families and bills and everyday life would drop everything to show up in solidarity in the cold. It's really cold in Minneapolis right now, are inspiring. Margaret Killjoy, an author and podcast host, wrote earlier this week, quote, "I came to Minneapolis to report on what's going on. And one of the main questions I showed up with is just what is the scale of the resistance? After all, we're used to seeing the news calling Portland a war zone or whatever when it's just some protests in one part of town." I talked with a 76-year-old who'd been standing in the cold for hours, guarding her neighbors. It was getting kind of chilly, even in the new winter gear that I brought for the trip. She didn't even have a hat on. Another person put it, we're Minnesotans. We're excited to get out real winter gear out of the box for the year. He was an audio engineer whose kid went to school in the area. No way in hell was he going to let anyone come for the kids on his watch. Another friend put it to me like this. ICE has made the classic Nazi mistake. They've invaded a winter people in the winter. When I asked an organizer what they wanted to see out of the press coverage, they told me they wanted people to see the beautiful things that they are building here, not just the worst stories of the worst of ICE crimes. What people are doing here is beautiful. It's a tragic beauty, but a real one. Kerry Howley reports in New York Magazine, it is the misfortune of Minnesota's ICE contingent to have invaded the state with the second highest levels of social trust, trailing only Utah. Many activist networks were formed in 2020. We are seeing, Juanita Petrus, the poet laureate of Minneapolis, says, Minnesotans calling upon the muscle memory of the George Floyd protests. In mid-January, a neighborhood organization for the part of town called Whittier put out a call for a meeting to organize a neighborhood ICE response. More than 800 people showed up at the local elementary school and formed a tiny line extending well beyond the door. Why a line? I asked someone later. Because we're in Minnesota, he says. In the cafeteria, in their big coats, adults struggled to get their legs through the benches that are attached to the long lunch tables. Because there were too many Minnesotans to fit in a single room, officials and parents and teachers went room to room, giving the same speeches about how to help neighbors in hiding. What a thing. What a thing to see. Leading off our discussion tonight is the Democratic Representative Kelly Morrison of Minnesota. Representative Morrison, it's always a pleasure to see you. We talk altogether too much these days for all the wrong reasons. But I think it's worth framing. There are some right reasons going on right now. Minnesotans and Americans have come together and said the cruelty is enough. It is too much. You will not take our souls. You will not take our cities.
That's exactly right. And I'm smiling, Allie. It's good to see you as ever. But I loved that ode to Minnesota that you just shared with everyone. I could not be more proud of my state and its people. You know, we're going through something really traumatic. The weight of the federal government is coming down upon us. We have literally been invaded by federal agents. Neighborhoods are being terrorized. Children are being terrorized. Families are being ripped apart. And Minnesotans are organizing in the most remarkable way. It's grassroots, neighborhood by neighborhood, school by school. People are coming together to protect each other and to take care of their neighbors. And I really think, you know, I just got back to Minnesota from DC. The eyes of the nation are on Minnesota right now. And for good reason, because you can't help but see the through line from the civil rights movement. You think about the March on Selma in 1965. As soon as the American people saw the fire hoses and the dogs turned onto people and saw the lack of humanity, that's when it started to change. And that's happening here, too. People saw with their own eyes that Renee Good was killed in an unjust way. Many people calling it murder and assassination, whatever you want to say. She should be alive today. We're watching small children wearing little bunny hats in the winter being used as bait to draw their parents out. We're seeing grandfathers being pulled out of their homes in freezing temperatures, wearing Crocs and no shirt. The images, I think, are breaking through. We had, by some estimates, 50,000 people show up in downtown Minneapolis today to protest ICE's presence. Allie, it is 30 below wind chill here today. It is really cold, even for Minnesota. And tens of thousands of people came out together to protest nonviolently and say, this will not stand in Minnesota, and this is not what we want the United States to be about. So I could not be more proud of my state, and I want the people of Minnesota to know that they are inspiring our nation, and in many ways they're inspiring people all over the world. And it's something.
And it is ours. It is ours in the rest of the world. I've got a piece of my heart in Minnesota because I spent so much time there, and it was a picture in the murder of George Floyd that broke through. that told people the official narrative is not true. You've got the Vice President of the United States saying that these were radical left lunatics and the violence that's going on. But we have eyes and we have video. And to all of those people who hit record every time, to all of those people who say, I'm out here standing guard for my neighbor, and they don't decide whether their neighbor matters less because they may be an American citizen, or they may be a documented immigrant, or they may be an undocumented immigrant, or they don't care. They are standing guard for their neighbor. That is a lesson for all of us across this country right now. Stand guard for your neighbor wherever you are. Go out and speak to the government and say, this is our country, not yours.
Absolutely. And, the other thing that happened today that I think was really beautiful is more than 1,000 clergy members flew to Minnesota today. Christian priests and pastors and rabbis and imams came together. They celebrated at Westminster Church in Minneapolis. Then they went to Temple Israel in Minneapolis. They went to the airport and prayed together. And they came because they believe in the dignity of every single human being. And this is what this fight is about. It is about the dignity of each one of us, and it's about human rights. It's something to behold, Ali, and I reiterate how proud I am of my state in this incredibly challenging and difficult moment. And I say to Minnesotans, keep going, continue, and to people across the country, continue to protest nonviolently. Yep. Continue to say, we are not going to let you take away our values of compassion and kindness and generosity and common humanity.
Congresswoman, thank you. It's been a tragic time and a difficult time, but out of this, we are seeing a great deal of hope and a great deal of promise. The Minnesota Congresswoman Kelly Morrison, we always thank you for your time.